Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Así el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin mi naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez. And Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here in Puerto Vallarta, and those are the Lapa Lapa, the El Dorado Beach Club, and at night for dinner, that El Dorado Beach Club transforms into the ever-so-romantic Vista Grill with dramatic views of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors. And of course, at Lapa Lapa, you can enjoy that same view of the Los Muertos Pier all day long for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand, right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, I'm going to introduce you to Gil Gevins. And Gil is one of Puerto Vallarta's funniest guys. He's an author. He's a businessman. And along with his wife, Lucy, they own a place called Lucy's Cucu Cabaña. But before we get to Gil, let's see what's happening in Puerto Vallarta this week, 28th of February, 2018. The Puerto Vallarta Travel Show has hit the big time, you guys, I guess. I don't know. But you can now listen to the show on iHeartRadio, as if you need another way to download the show, right? But you can now get it at iHeart. You can get it at Spreaker and Stitcher and Podbean and iTunes and FM radio and, of course, Libsyn and, well, all those places and more. And you can find the podcast also. The Puerto Vallarta Travel Show is available on YouTube as well as Facebook and Twitter. So thanks for listening, and just, make sure you share with your friends. And once again, we are on iHeartRadio. My friend Cecil reminded me that there is a fundraiser coming up for Corazón de Nina, which is an orphanage that I took you guys to last month. And if you haven't listened to that episode, the conversation I had with Melissa Canez, who runs that orphanage, was really, really a great listen. So make sure that if you haven't heard it, check it out. But if you're in town on March 11th, you might consider joining in all the fun. They're going to be having a silent auction and a garden party to benefit Corazón de Nina at La Hacienda de Carlota, which is on the south side, and it's called Artist for Orphans. And they're going to have PL Canela, which is a great group, will be playing there. They're going to have tapas. They're going to have all kinds of other things there. It's going to be Sunday, March 11th from 2 until 4. And Hacienda de Carlota is a beautiful restaurant. It's located on Lazaro Cardenas, 388, on the south side of Puerto Vallarta. And it's 500 pesos. And the tickets are available at Cassandra Shaw Jewelry, over on Basilio Badillo, or at the Corazón de Nina thrift store, which is in the marina at Bay 8, they call it. They just finished a new section of the three-part highway that is going to be going from Guadalajara to Puerto Vallarta, and the new Nayarit highway links Compostela and Jala. It's 54 kilometers, and it basically took that, connected those two places, and it just takes about 30 minutes now to go that route, that whole 34-kilometer road. Now, they are planning in July to finish the second leg It's almost done. They say it's about 90% done, and that one goes from Compostela to Las Varas. And then the third leg, of course, is going to be going from Las Varas to Puerto Vallarta, and that evidently is some ways away. The president of Mexico came to officiate the grand opening, and Enrique Peña Nieto said that 39 of the 52 highway projects his administration committed to build have now been completed. This government has gone to work and has fulfilled its commitments. That is what we have done in the whole country, he said. So it's very, very great. I have a map showing what's going on there and a link to the article from Mexico News Daily. So check that out. And hey, it's getting closer, you guys. Pretty soon, there is going to be that road completed from Guadalajara to Puerto Vallarta. And then when that happens, look out, kids. Last week, I introduced you to my friend, Javier Arias. He was the taxi driver in El Tuito who took me to his hometown of Maito, if you remember. And he gave me that great interview, and he gave me a tour. Well, he told me that he has already heard from some of you guys, and he appreciates your business, and he has a new email address. It's really easy to remember, and I will give it to you now. It's taxitomato@gmail.com. That's taxitomayto@gmail.com. Pretty easy to remember. He still prefers the phone, and I have his contact information in the show notes for this show. And I have Javier's contact information also in the show notes for last show. And I'll try to get those into the links page as well. So you'll be able to find him, find his phone number. I have instructions on how to call him from your cell phone north of the border to his cell phone south of the border. And speaking of El Tuito and Maito, Maria Santander, who runs the Galleria Copelia, she... And by the way, if you haven't heard that particular podcast with Maria, she was great, as well as all the people that I interviewed. Maria and Maddie, Jesse, Javier, they were so wonderful. And I think it really gave us a diverse overview of El Tuito and Maito and Tambo Mixle and that whole area. Those people really did a great job in opening our eyes and introducing us to the area. Anyway, Maria reminded me about something that I totally had forgotten about. She wrote to me and she said, "Barry, don't forget, while we were doing the interview at my gallery, Javier got a flat tire on his way to get you, and he sent the lovely Transito cop in Tuito over to let us know that he would come for you shortly. I thought that was pretty cool of both of them." That is so true, Maria. So true. You know, it was totally cool. The local cop just stops by to deliver a personal message to Maria from the taxi driver, right? Just to let us know about his whereabouts. And you know where I come from. This is totally unheard of. But in Mexico, not so unusual, believe it or not. I got a funny email from Mama Patty, and I wanted to read it to you guys, and it goes like this. It goes, "Hello from sunny southern Alberta, Canada." Not. She says, "I am Merv's wife, and I wanted to thank you for your podcast. We love the boys very much." Oh, she's talking about Tres Cuartos, okay? The boys are the guys in the band from La Tres Cuartos. So if you guys have not heard that episode, you should definitely catch that. Anyway, she says, "We love the boys very much and thought you would enjoy a funny story from their time here in Canada. We tend to make a little noise in our neighborhood from time to time. All good, just music, and we've been quite surprised that the authorities have never paid us a visit. Well, that changed one night when La Tres Cuartos were in the house, and Fernando, decided it was karaoke night. Apparently, our neighbors will put up with almost anything, but on the microphone, but us on the microphone. For the record, Fernando was singing when they showed up, so we're blaming it on him." Okay, that's okay. That's pretty funny. You guys remember that Fernando liked to sing karaoke in the shower, right? Well, not really. I mean, it was this place called La Regadera, which means the shower in Spanish, and it's in downtown Vallarta. I put a map in the show notes, by the way, if you forgot where you can find this place, this karaoke spot that these guys over at La Tres Cuartos love to go to. But I'll put a map on the show notes so you can find it. But it's on Morelos. It's behind the restaurant. It's an Italian restaurant on the Malecon called La Dolce Vita. It's behind that on Morelos. So not too far from Mandela, or Mandala, I guess I keep trying to say Mandala, and all of the loud nightclubs that are there on the Malecon. So it's not too far behind it. So anyway, thank you, Patty. That's great dirt on Fernando. This is the kind of information, you guys, that we like to get on the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. So thank you again, Patty. Look, there's just so much more to talk about, including some other letters from listeners, but I really need to get to our guests, so let's do it right now. Gil Gevins was recommended to me by several people. JR, for one, told me really early on that I really need to hook up with Gil. And way back when I started the podcast, my buddy Reggie also told me that I should talk to him too. But I sent Gil an email last year asking him if I could interview him. And he said he was unfortunately closed for the summer and he wanted to know what's the deal with the interview. Did I want a job? No, I want to interview for you for my podcast. Anyway, this time down, I was really fortunate to get a chance to visit with Gil at his shop, Lucy's Cucu Cabaña. It's located on Basilio Bedillo on the south side of Puerto Vallarta. And I have a map in the show notes. But if you want a good landmark, let's just use Memo's Pancake House because he's right next door to Memo's. It's a very, very tiny place. So if you're not looking, you could really just walk right by it. But it's beautiful inside. It's got some great, great items. So let's just get right to it, shall we? Let's go to 295 Basilio Bedillo in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and visit with the funny guy of Puerto Vallarta, author and businessman, Gil Gevins. Hey, Gil. Thanks for having me come on in here today.
Hey, my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, I was born and raised in New York City, and as soon as I was old enough to think rationally, I moved to California and spent about 10 years there in the Bay Area. And while I was in the Bay Area, I went to a hot tub party in the Oakland Hills. And I went to this party because a friend of mine told me that the wife of the person holding the party was one of the most beautiful women he'd ever seen in his life, and I had to go just to look at this woman because she was so beautiful. I said, okay. Anyway, I went to the party, and I saw this woman at the hot tub party, and she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I spent the whole night following around like a puppy dog, and I didn't know, but she was leading me on the whole time. I didn't know what was happening. It was a hot tub party, so at 5 a.m, I found myself alone in the hot tub with her, and everyone had left the party but us and her husband. And he came into the hot tub room and said, "I'll see you later," and left. And I said to Lucy, because that's who it was, "Where's he going?" And she said, "He's going to see his..." Should I be telling this on a podcast?
No,
anyway, she said he's going to see his boyfriend, and that's all I needed to hear. Within 5 minutes, she and I were man and wife, and I actually literally took her out of that house, and she never went back.
Yay!
And that's how I came. Oh, so how did I come to Mexico?
Yeah.
This is all about coming to Mexico. Let me get rid of this telephone call.
Okay, yeah, get it. Sure, you're working, man.
So how did I wind up in Mexico? Well, through forces beyond our control, I was forced to go back to New York to take care of my mother who was ill. And Lucy was forced to move to Mexico to get away from her crazy ex-husband, who actually turned out was her boyfriend, but he made her tell everyone they were married, and he was really quite nuts. He followed us around with, pointing guns at us and stuff.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so
Time to leave.
I got back to California after taking care of my mom. Actually, I moved her to California, and Lucy had moved to Mexico, and I was heartbroken, and she was heartbroken. And neither one of us knew what to do. And 2.5 years later, I came to Puerto Vallarta to visit her for 2 weeks. And the rest is history. We've been married for 35 years.
35 years.
All started in a hot tub.
In the Hollywood Hills.
Oakland Hills.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm thinking about home here. I'm not thinking about up there.
I do have a story about the Hollywood Hills, but it involves totally other people, and I probably can't repeat this one.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Lots of people listening. So
Right.
It is a family show, and, we try to keep it that way.
Well,
It's okay.
Kids nowadays are a little more mature, I should think. So,
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Okay, so tell us about your place. First of all, when did you open it?
Yeah, we opened Lucy's Cucu Cabaña in 1993. And we opened it because, we were looking for a source of income at that time. And all of our friends who would come to our house said, you have better stuff than all the shops in Puerto Vallarta, because we had spent the previous 10 years collecting, traveling all over Mexico in the summertime, because the last time I spent the summer in Puerto Vallarta was 1984. I love Vallarta. I hate the summer here. So we just started traveling up in the mountains where the weather's beautiful. And I say for 10 years, we collected masks, textiles, all kinds of Mexican folk art. And when our friends said you should open a shop, I said, no, we'll lose a ton of money. That's crazy. I don't want to open a shop. We did it. And, interestingly enough, the place we opened the shop was our comadre's mother's house. And for those of you who don't understand comadre, our two best friends got married. We were the padrinos of the wedding, meaning that we were the godparents, and that meant that her aunt was part of the family, and her aunt owned this building and wanted to build more floors. So we gave her a year's rent. She built upstairs, and we moved in here and turned it was her living room in her house. We turned it into a store.
Cool. So tell us about these beautiful pieces of art that you collect.
My wife and I have spent probably over 30 years traveling all over southern and central Mexico, collecting Mexican folk art in 9 different states. These days, we get most of our art from the states of Guerrero, Oaxaca, Puebla, Michoacan, Guanajuato, DF, Chiapas. And what we found is that Mexican artisans are by far the most creative, the most talented in the world. And a lot of that stems from the fact that in Mexico today, 62 independent indigenous languages are still spoken. 62. The only other country that has more is China, which has over 100. Now, China has far, far, far more people than Mexico. And actually, one of those languages, Zapotec, which is from Oaxaca, there are 100 dialects of Zapotec. And there's a long story behind that, but that gives you an idea of the variety of the indigenous cultures that you find here in Mexico, and that all the variety of the folk art is a direct result of that.
Okay, so you obviously have, I would say, I'm thinking you probably have vendors. You have people that you go see maybe yearly and shop with them. How do you do that?
Yeah, we have about 200 artisans that we see every single year in person on our buying trip. And we've probably dealt with 700 or 800 artisans over the years, but we whittled the list down to people who have stuff that sells, who are reliable, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of the art that we have here in the shop was influenced by us in that we gave the artisans some ideas. Some of the ideas we gave them were, we sell mostly to North Americans, and they don't like bright fluorescent colors like neon orange and lime green and hot pink and all that, which are very popular here in Mexico. And there was some resistance at first, but after a while, we got all of the artisans that we deal with to drop a lot of their fluorescent colors. And in fact, that spread to the two villages where most of the Oaxacan alebrijes come from. Same is true in the rugs. We've taken a lot of rugs where we liked the design on one rug, but we didn't like the colors, and we took the colors from one and the design from the other and combined them. So we've done a little bit of creating ourselves, but we don't make anything. We don't have the talent to make anything. It's the artisans who have the talent.
Yeah, well, you certainly have chosen wisely. You've got some great things here. What kind of people come in here and shop? I mean, you have obviously a lot of Americans and Canadians. Do you get locals actually coming in here and shopping too?
Well, we have, breaking it down by percentage, probably 60% American, 30% Canadian, and 10% Mexican. Mm-hmm. And as far as the sales go, they're about 80% American.
Okay. Do you do online sales at all, or is it strictly walk in, here we go?
Well, it's pretty much strictly walk in. We use Facebook quite a bit these days, to promote certain items. If we get a really special piece, we'll put it on Facebook. But we're really backward in social media and all that. We really depend on word of mouth, and we always have from day one.
Good. You are an author. You've written some very interesting books. You want to tell our listeners about the books that you've written?
Yeah, I'd like to tell everyone about the latest book I've written because, writers really don't care too much about their old books. It's kind of like that's the past. And this book's only been out for 2 weeks, so I'm still excited about it. Probably for another 15 minutes, and then I'll go on to something else. But my latest book is a novel, and it's in the same style that I've written all of my books, which is a easy to read, satirical, kind of fun, entertaining style with lots of playing around with the language and a lot of irony, a lot of satire, and a little bit of sarcasm. I'm not as fond of sarcasm as some people who know me think. At least when I write, I'm not. And it takes place in 1967. It takes place immediately following the famous Summer of Love. And it follows a young man who is extremely brilliant and talented and good-looking. He's kind of like a super person. And it follows him as he experiences the decline and fall of Western civilization in the East Village in New York after the Summer of Love. The subtitle of the book, which nobody wanted me to put on the cover, but I did, is The Autumn of Postcoital Despair. Now, I figured anyone old enough to know what postcoital meant wouldn't be offended unless they were Republicans. But I felt that it really describes exactly what happens in the book to the extent that, and also it's an ironic title, because it's overly melodramatic and all that stuff. So that's part of why I put it on there, too. Anyway, things happen to this young man, and through no fault of his own, some horrible stuff happens. He comes from a family that's completely insane, and half the people in the book are totally insane. And one of the themes of the book, actually, one of the many themes, because there are some. It's a funny book. It's supposed to be a satire, but there are a lot of serious themes in the book as well. And one of them is relative insanity, and the point being that we're all insane. It's just a matter of degree. How insane is each person, and that is something that is dealt with throughout the book. Also, the dichotomy between what was, the peace and love, we're all one frame of mind, and the Vietnam War and all the horrible stuff that happened along with all that. So it's kind of a historical novel. I tried to stay very accurate as far as geography, people, places. I had to screw around a little bit with the dates just to make the plot work.
Is that available like on Amazon? Where's it at?
Right at the moment, it is available at Lucy's Cucu Cabaña for $15, which is 5 years of work. It's almost it's a 450-page book. It's a lot of work. It will be on Amazon within a couple of weeks.
Okay, good. All right.
It'll be available both as a paperback and as an ebook on Amazon in 2 weeks.
Excellent.
All my other books are on Amazon already.
They are.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about your other books.
Well, I've written 4 other books. My first book was Puerto Vallarta on 49 brain cells a day, and that is the one that everyone loves the most. It's not my personal favorite, but I think everyone loves it because it's about when I first came to Mexico and all the problems I got into, and I think everyone relates to that. After living here for 35 years, I don't get into those kind of problems, and everything that used to seem surreal to me that I wrote about seems normal now. So it's very hard for me to find material.
Yeah, I hear you. So book number 2 was?
Okay, well, anyway, so that one sold very, very well, and I say people really liked it. It still sells to this day. That came out in 2001, and it still outsells most of my other books. My second book was called Refried Brains, and probably half the people who see the cover think it says refried beans, refried beans, but I did it on purpose. Just like 49 brain cells a day, I wanted them to see dollars instead of brain cells when I wrote it because I thought that was funny. And that is actually, refried brains are longer stories. They are, 3,000-4,000 word stories. Most of them were published originally in a publication called The Voice, which was a magazine here in Puerto Vallarta. And they're more of the same. They're just longer versions of what I would write for the newspaper. Uh-huh. And the third book, Donkey a Day, are simply stories, a compilation of stories from the newspapers that I've written for here over the years. There's about 45 of them, and they're all really short. So it's a great bathroom read. You can just one story per bowel movement. It's a perfect timing. And my next book was Slime and Punishment. And that and my current book are the two that I am the most proud of. Slime and Punishment is a novel, and it's a tale of middle-aged lust gone horribly wrong, is how I described it. And half of it takes place in Cuba and half in New York City. And now my latest book. So 5 books, and I think I'm done. I'm tired.
You are. Your hand must hurt. What is your favorite part about this place?
The shop?
Yeah.
What I love the most about the shop is that we're supporting people who are incredibly talented and creative and who have a limited shelf life. In other words, folk art is going to disappear someday. They're getting squeezed. The artisans are paying more and more for their materials all the time, and they can only charge so much before people just won't buy their stuff anymore because, people only will place so much value on something that's handcrafted. I'll give you an example. In the United States, the same handcrafted piece that I have here is worth triple or quadruple in the U.S. what it's worth in a shop in the United States as opposed to what it's worth here. That is probably the most gratifying thing to me is seeing the artisans do well. There's one family that makes most of our rugs. There's a family that makes most of our rugs. They built the entire second floor of their house with money that they made from our purchase of their rugs. And, they were really proud of it, and we just felt great about it. That's number one. Number two is just being around all this beautiful stuff. We just love looking at it all. Our house looks like the shop. It makes us feel good. It's all very cheerful, kind of happy stuff. Yeah.
I'm sure also you have repeat clients coming yearly when they come and visit, I imagine?
Yeah, no, we have a lot of, I would say more than half our clients come every year. Yeah. And without the repeat business, we'd have no business. Right. In the lean years, it was the repeat business that kept us open.
Mm-hmm. If you were going to give a piece of advice to a first-time traveler to Puerto Vallarta, what would it be?
If I was going to come to Puerto Vallarta for the first time, I would make a definite point of exploring the south of Vallarta. And by the south of Vallarta, I mean the highway, the Pan American Highway that leaves Vallarta, goes south towards Mismaloya, Boca de Tomatlan, Manzanillo. That is one of the most beautiful pieces of coast in the world, and definitely in Mexico. The mountains come right down to the ocean and creates beautiful dramatic effects. There's a place called Boca de Tomatlan, which is a fishing village only 20-25 minutes south of Vallarta. And going to Boca is like going back to Vallarta 70 years ago. It's just a spectacularly beautiful place. You can hang out on the beach all day, have some fish, or from Boca, from that beach, you can take a water taxi and continue on south to the villages of Las Animas, Camixto, Yalapa, and all of those are worth seeing. The boat ride is just a spectacular boat ride. And actually, if you're in good shape, which I no longer am, but I used to do this all the time, you can walk from Boca to Las Animas. It's about an hour and a half walk. It's a beautiful walk. It hugs the coast. And if you're really ambitious, you can continue walking from Las Animas onto Camixto, which is about another hour and a half. And then if you're tired, take a boat back to Boca. There's all kinds of water taxis. So I would explore, if I was going to do one thing, I would explore the south coast of Vallarta.
Excellent. Okay. So let's get into what I like to do is the suggestion booth. Okay, we're going to go right now to your favorite places for lunch and breakfast and dinner. So why don't we start with breakfast, just because I started with lunch.
Okay, my favorite place for breakfast is my house. We do not eat breakfast out. Lunch and dinner for us is kind of the same thing, because we've adopted the Mexican way, and we have our big meal in the afternoon and we just have a light snack at night. My very favorite seafood restaurant is Polo's, which is down the block here in Basilio Badillo. That's maybe our number one restaurant here in Vallarta. I also like the Rio Grande, which is on the main drag across from Lay's Supermarket. Their specialty is barbecued fish sarandillado, which is out of this world. Oh. I could eat that three times a week. There's a place I like called El Encanto. El Encanto is a little restaurant way off the beaten track on Achilles Cerdán. It's a little homey place. They've got great food, ridiculously good prices, and there's hardly anybody ever there. My wife is really good friends with the owner, and we know she knew the waiter from when he worked at Casablanca restaurant, 20 years ago. Anyway, El Encanto is a fantastic place. So those are our favorites.
Yeah. One of these days, I'm going to get into El Encanto. I was around the corner from there the other day, and I stayed there for a week, and I kept on walking by, and I'd stick my head in, and it looked so sweet and pretty inside, and I felt like I didn't want to walk in because I was a single diner, and
it's got a wonderful atmosphere. You feel like you're walking into some gourmet restaurant, and then you find out it's got prices like a very low-end restaurant. Yeah. Not a very low-end, but a low-end restaurant, and the food is excellent. It really is good. The owner is there all the time. He's cooking. You get really good service. I highly recommend it. I don't know why it's not more popular, except that it's way out of the way.
Yeah, it's just in a different locale. It's up in the neighborhood.
Right.
All right. How about a hole in the wall? Like, it doesn't have to be a place to eat. It could be just a spot. Is there a place that you've ever walked past and go, it's not much, stuck your head in and went, wow?
Not really. Not in Vallarta. In Oaxaca, that happens all the time, because almost any place you poke your head in has the best food in the world in Oaxaca. But
really?
Yeah, it's the best food in Mexico, and it's famous all over the world. Oaxacan food is unbelievable. No, I'm not that adventurous anymore. We eat at the same 6 or 7 places all the time.
Yeah.
We love Trio. We like Vitea. The closest to a hole in the wall, around the corner from where we live, there's a Chinese restaurant. It has Cantonese and Sichuan food. I think it's called the Oriental Palace. It's on San Salvador Street between Guatemala and the next one down. Mm-hmm. And I never expected that to be good, and it actually is really good. Having lived in New York and San Francisco, I ate some pretty good Chinese food, and this place isn't bad, and it's starting to become more popular with North Americans. So it looks like a place that would be terrible, and they fixed it up since then. So that's the closest I can come to a hole in the wall.
All right, all right. When you go back and talk to these artisans every year, you ever go back and they're not there?
Yes, unfortunately, we have lost a number of artisans over the year. The majority of them moved to the United States because they could not make a living as an artisan, and they wound up, working on construction crews or washing dishes or whatever. And the good side, the upside of this is, yes, we lost some artisans, but these guys are sending money back to their families, and I have seen the beautiful homes that have been built with the money that they've sent home to their wife and children. So they're not making folk art anymore, but they are providing a much nicer life for their families. So I have to respect that.
Right.
We've had several artisans die over the years, because we've been dealing with a lot of these people for 25, actually longer than that, because some of these people we knew before we even had the shop. So yeah, we are losing artisans, and more and more all the time.
So what happens when that happens? You go around and start shopping? You stick your head in places that you hadn't stuck your head in before?
Well, I'll give you an example. We go to a lot of villages, and in these villages, a lot of people are related to everybody else. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cousins, a lot of people with the same last names, and a lot of them make the same kind of things. So, and then one of the reasons that we get really good prices is that we go to, let's say, Ben Hameen's house, and Ben Hameen has raised his price. And I say, well, I can go next door to Mauricio, and maybe he hasn't raised. No, I won't raise the price this year. And so the fact that, we lose artisans, but we do know so many artisans that we haven't had a problem yet replacing what we've lost.
Good. Yeah,
we will someday.
Yeah. Well,
one of the things that is really disappearing are good mask makers. There are less and less good mask makers all the time. I personally have a mask collection. I have really high standards of what I consider to be a good mask. And, there's less and less all the time. I'm down to a couple of families that I deal with, and, they're getting older. And,
yeah.
The kids are working in other jobs. One kid's becoming an accountant, and, they see the handwriting on the wall. So there are things that are disappearing. And we've seen 3 or 4 things disappear already that were beautiful, that we really regret that we didn't hold on to one of them for ourselves. So.
Yeah. Do you have any bestsellers around here? What's your best-selling items?
Well, it's funny. Everyone asks me that. And after 25 years, everything is our bestseller, mm-hmm. because we eliminated anything that didn't sell well. So every single thing in the shop is our bestseller. We do specialize in Oaxacan alebrijes, the carved painted animals, and the Oaxacan rugs, but we have bronze, we have copper, we have sheet metal, we have all kinds of jewelry, both silver and otherwise. We have mirrors, we have frames, we have masks, wall decorations, Christmas decorations, furniture. We have a very, very wide variety. And I think aside from the quality of this stuff, if anything really stands out about our shop is we have packed a tremendous variety of Mexican folk art, really representing almost the whole country, into a small space without cluttering and leaving space so that you can actually look at stuff. And, I'd like to go back to my book again, because one of the reasons I agreed to this is I really want people to come down to Lucy's Cucu Cabaña and buy 1967. It is a great read. All the people who have read it so far, almost without exception, have come back and told me how much they loved it. They couldn't put it down. People who aren't even readers, they just say they just love it. And every chapter is like one of the columns in my newspaper. If that's what you like the columns in my paper. Each chapter is like reading a column in the paper, except there's about 150 chapters. So you get 150 columns for the price of one book. And all I can say is that if you have enjoyed my columns, please show it by coming in and buying my book, because I don't get anything for writing that. I just do it as a public service. So
yeah,
really, I'd like to encourage everyone to come in. There's signed copies in the store all the time. And come on in and get one. And I'm ready for the next question now.
Okay. Hey, listen, I'll give you another. You can pitch it out later on if you want. JR was telling me that I need to ask you about when they tried to put parking meters out here on the street in Basilio video.
This was quite funny. They actually began, this happened a few years ago, they began right here on our block to put in the parking meters, the very first ones in Vallarta. The idea was to put them in all over downtown Vallarta. To raise money, obviously. That's why they put in parking meters. Well, right around the corner from the shop, they were attempting to put in a parking meter. And the woman who lived in front of this parking meter, who did not want to have to pay to park in front of her own house, came out with a broom and began smacking the guy with a broom over the head and the shoulders. And she literally drove him off with the broom. And that was the beginning of the end of the parking meter. She wasn't the only one. The whole town kind of rose up and rebelled against it, and they just canceled the entire project. God knows how much money they threw away buying 10,000, 20,000 parking meters. However, there was a silver lining. The parking meters came in these great little boxes, which were perfect for packing our merchandise. We wound up getting 100 boxes from these guys. And that was a big help.
Yeah. He said something about some kids walking up and not knowing what it was.
Oh yes, that I forgot. That was there's two parts. And I'm sitting here in my desk looking out the window, and there's two young Mexican boys, and I don't remember how old they were, 7 or 8, and they are staring at because they put one right in front of the shop. They are staring at this parking meter like it's an alien that just landed from outer space. They have no idea what it is, and they start trying to play it like a video game. And actually, this one kid put some coins in thinking that a gumball was going to come out or one of those rubber spiders or something. I don't know what they were thinking, but they got very frustrated. They started kicking it. They started punching it, and then they just walked away.
Yeah, there you go.
Clash of cultures.
I'm telling you what. Well, those guys are after my own heart. Who loves a parking meter? Nobody. Nobody. Tell everybody where you guys are located exactly.
Okay. No, we are on Basilio Badillo, between the streets of Constitution and Ignacio Vallarta. And this street, Basilio Badillo, is a very interesting street because we lived on this street. Our house was 2 doors down. What now is Nacho Daddy was our house back in 1980, from 1980 to 1985 when we moved to the beach. And so, we go way back in this neighborhood now. Now our store is just 2 doors away. This street was a very quiet street when I moved in here. My wife, Lucy, she moved in 1980. I didn't move here until 1983. And it was a very quiet street. It had just become a one-way street. It had been a two-way street, and it was one of the quietest streets in town. Mm-hmm. Well, once it became a one-way street, it became the main street out of town. And there were no commercial businesses on the block to speak of, except across the street from the house was the Motel Mayo. And we had a rather interesting experience about a week after I moved in. There were a couple of friends and I were over at the house, and some new friends, a couple of Mexican guys who became my very best friends, wonderful guys. And they're the ones who taught me Spanish and everything. Anyway, I went to go we were doing some stuff and having fun, and maybe something that we're doing was creating an odor that, we didn't want other people to smell. But anyway, I went to go let the dog out of the front door, and I opened the front door and was rather surprised to see 25 soldiers in our front yard. And I immediately closed the door, and I went and told my friend Javier, I said, Javier, flush everything that you can think of down the toilet. There's 20 soldiers in the front. Well, Javier was a very experienced fellow. He actually was the first manager of Carlos O'Brien's. He started Casablanca Restaurant. He wasn't some greenhorn like me here in Mexico. And he goes, no. Let me go and see what's happening. Don't do anything rash. Let me go check. So he went outside and talked to the soldiers. And then he came back inside laughing. And I was thinking, what in the God's name could be funny about 25 soldiers in your front yard? He goes, you know what these guys are doing here? I said, no. He said, they're waiting for their captain. He's across the street at the whorehouse in the Motel Mayo. And that's when I found out that we were living across the street from a whorehouse. I had no idea. Neither did Lucy.
Well, it's a good thing you were married, dude. I tell you right now.
I have one other really good story I think you might enjoy from those days.
Absolutely.
This also was in my first year. It seems that when you move to a new place, everything happens in the first 2 years. And then you get used to it and not much happens. Well, that's what happened to me. Everything happened in the first 2 years. I guess, let's see, it was March. I might have been my very first year in Vallarta, might have been my second. I'm not sure. The Queen of England came to Puerto Vallarta. And this was a really big deal. No boats could leave the harbor. She came in her gigantic yacht, which was 16 kabillion miles long. And everybody was grounded. And then she and President Portillo were going to do a drive around Vallarta in a couple of buses on a parade route so everybody could get a look at the Queen. So that was fantastic. Our house on Basilio Badillo, 2 doors from where the store is right now, happened to be right on the Queen's parade route. So Lucy and I got a couple of plastic lawn chairs. We stuck them out on the sidewalk, and we waited for the Queen to show up. Well, while we're waiting, they're cleaning up. They don't want the Queen to see a mess, know. They're painting the curb. They're picking up every cigarette butt, every bottle cap. But they're running out of time. The Queen's going to be showing up really soon. Well, all of a sudden, here comes her motorcade. And it's not just her bus. First, there's about 6 cars with guys with machine guns. And then there's low key because they were closed cars and they had them in their laps, but I could see them. And then there was the bus with the President Portillo. And then the Queen's bus. And I'm thinking, oh my God, only half of the street has been cleaned. One half of the street has a white curb, is immaculate. The other half is filthy, is disgusting. Well, she was looking out of a window at the clean side. So they knew what they were doing. They cleaned one half. This was a long parade route, 2 or 3 miles. They cleaned one half and painted one half of a 3-mile parade route. And the other side, they just left it in rack and ruin. And that was the Queen visiting. We were just, and I did wave to her. And you can't see this because it's a podcast, but she waved back from her elbow, waving her arm back and forth from the elbow, just like you see on TV with her white glove. And she looked right at me. I was maybe 12 feet away, and it was one of the least thrilling moments of my life.
Yes, I love that. Well, you're not Canadian, you're not a Brit, but she's still around.
She's still around. We did have a king in the U.S. We threw him out, King George. We don't like dictators.
No.
And we don't like the current dictator either.
There. That's right.
Sorry I had to get that in. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but if I did, don't buy my book.
You have any other cool stories, Gil? You got any about some crazy S that's happened around here?
No, I've got a whole bunch of them, but, my memory isn't working too good at the moment. One of the things that we always used to enjoy doing was going to Las Animas Beach every Sunday. And, years ago, there was just a couple of restaurants. It was really quiet on Sunday. Now it's a real zoo, and don't like to go there anymore. There's just too many boats, too many restaurants. But it used to be really quiet, and we always sat at Pichon's restaurant, and I'd have a couple of glasses of Raicilla. And if anyone who doesn't know, Raicilla is our local moonshine, and it's like drinking a combination of gasoline and Drano. And 4 shots is the human limit. I only would have 2, but anyone I saw go over 4 shots would wind up doing things like swimming in the sand, falling downstairs, talking to tables as if they were a human being. Anyway, so Lucy and I were at Las Animas one day. I'd had my 2 shots of Raicilla and who knows what else, and I was feeling really good. And this kid comes up to me, and he's got this little animal. The animal must have been about 7 or 8 inches long, had a really long nose and a long tail, and he had it tied on like a 3-foot string, a cord. And I go, this animal does not look happy. And I said, what are you doing with him? And he says, he's selling it. And I said, what is it? He said, a tejon. Well, I hadn't been in Mexico very long. I had no idea what a tejon was. I go, it's a baby tejon, huh? So how much do you want for it? He said, $5. I said, okay. So I took it home. Obviously, I was not in my right senses, or I wouldn't have done that. Anyway, we took him home, and I put him on a longer string and tied him to a tree in our courtyard. And we're trying to figure out, what in the world is this thing? So I get out a dictionary, and I look up tejon, and it says badger. Well, that's a misnomer. In Mexico, they call these animals tejons. They're actually a coati or a coatimundi, but in Mexico, they're called tejon. And that means badger, and of course this dictionary was not made in Mexico, it was made in Spain, like all books that come from Spain or Argentina. There's not much of a publishing industry here. Anyhow, so, oh my God, I got a baby badger. What am I going to do? At that moment, and again, this seems unbelievable, but it really happened. He was tied up to this tree in the courtyard. A baby bird fell out of that tree at his feet, and which was a little shocking, but what was more shocking was within 30 seconds, there was nothing left but the beak and a couple of feathers. And my wife and I we thought it was an anteater, by the way. It had a long nose. I forgot to mention that. We were convinced this whole time. And I had heard that anteaters could make good pets, that you could tame them and all that. Uh-huh. So, it just scarfs up this bird and leaves the beak. And my wife and I looked at each other and go, that is not an anteater. That's a fucking... That's a badger. We are in big trouble, and we're already attached to him now. I couldn't give him away. I'm in love with this little guy. He's really cute. So my God, we got a baby badger. At that moment, our friend Hugo came over, one Mexican guy, and he goes, oh, you've got a tejon. I go, yeah, it's a badger. It's a vicious animal. No, it's not. It's a coatimundi. Anyway, he knew what it was, and he said it's like a raccoon. Yeah. Well, that was bad enough, but, a raccoon is not as vicious as a badger.
Oh, no.
So we kept him. And we named him TJ for Tejon, spelled with a T and a J, but, kind of like Tijuana. And we had him for 2 years, and he was just very entertaining. Every time I would walk by, he would try to jump on top of my arm, or he would jump on top of Lucy's head and start digging for grubs.
Nice.
And on his first birthday, I gave him a pina colada. And because he was really hyper, these animals are super, super hyper. You have to be very slow around them. I gave him a pina colada, and he got all relaxed and mellow and affectionate for about 15 minutes. He was sticking his tongue in my ear, and I thought we were going to have a whole new relationship. But then he went back to being his old crazy hyper self. Anyway, I had him for 2 years. It was a lot of fun, and it just goes to show you when you're at the beach and you have some raicilla, ask someone who's sober before you make any decisions.
Speaking of badgers and animals and things that you're not really used to, you live here. What's the craziest thing that's ever walked into your house, insect-wise?
Well, insect-wise, we have had invasions by, ants, cockroaches, the usual moths, pollia, which are like flying termites and stuff. But we have had a possum or another living inside our house over the years a dozen times. And all of our houses have been porous. In other words, there was somewhere that they could get in from. And, I used to not like possums, but after a while I became fond of them, and it's kind of like they're so ugly, they're cute.
They're so ugly.
And the problem with possums is they smell and they make a mess, so you can't let them stay in your house. One day when we were living on the beach, we were going to have some company over, and Lucy had a drawer with her fine linens in it. And she opened it up, and there was a baby possum asleep inside. Another time, I woke up at 4 a.m, and there was a very large possum on top of the television in our bedroom. These were the days before the flat screen when we had like big fat Sony Trinitron.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe he was there, and I stayed awake watching him, and he proceeded to make a circuit of the entire house. He followed the wall all the way around the entire house, and about 20 minutes later, he was back on the television again. Anyway, so after he did that, after the TV, he went into the bathroom. Well, I just closed the bathroom door and said, okay, we'll deal with him in the morning. Uh-huh. And for the next hour, that possum knocked over everything that you could absolutely knock over in a bathroom.
Yeah,
it was a disaster. And then at 9 o'clock, we went and got the gardener. This guy must have weighed about 20, 25 pounds. Wow. I was afraid to deal with him myself. So we got our gardener, Arturo, and Arturo came over, and he took one look at the possum, and he started licking his lips.
Oh.
And I said, Arturo, why are you licking your lips? He goes, oh, these are delicious. I go, okay, whatever. Anyway, Arturo grabbed him by the tail because, when they're in the daytime, possums are half asleep. It's really not that dangerous if you know what you're doing. And, I'm sure he ate him. And that possum wound up
in somebody's pot.
Yeah, So that was only a couple of times. We've had many, many times have we found possums in the house, under the refrigerator, in our fireplace.
Wow.
I mean, everywhere.
Wow. Possum City around you.
And once we had a nighthawk, which is called a lechuza, which is a hawk which flies around at night, hunts at night, and stuck in our house. We got him out, and we've had hummingbirds stuck in the house.
Any big spiders?
Not here, but we live between here and San Miguel de Allende, up in the high desert, and we have scorpions coming in the house, snakes, because we're out in the country.
Yeah,
and I've been stung by a scorpion 3 times now.
Really?
Yeah, and luckily the scorpions up there aren't that venomous. They don't make you sick, but I wound up with the world's worst itch for about 4 days. Almost just about drove me insane. But no, I've never been bit by a scorpion here. In fact, I haven't seen a scorpion in many, many years in Vallarta. I don't think they like to live downtown, around people. There's probably still scorpions in Yalapa, but I have not seen one in many, many years here.
Okay.
And, as far as, strange insects, my worst experience with insects was one night I couldn't sleep. It was the summertime, and I got up around 3 or 4 in the morning, and we had half a papaya sitting upside down in a dish, and, a round papaya, and there were probably 20 large cockroaches all nibbling on the papaya. It looked like a rugby scrum. That wasn't very pleasant.
No.
I actually lost it, and, I didn't have any clothes or anything, and I just started killing them with my bare hands and feet. That's how upset I was that they were eating my breakfast.
Eating your breakfast?
Eating my breakfast, yeah.
That's not good. Speaking of breakfast, I see people that live here buying fruits and vegetables, and they wash them off, and then they soak them in something.
Yes, all your produce and I mean all of your produce, should be soaked for 10 minutes in something called microdine. And microdine kills everything. It is especially important for things like strawberries, lettuce, anything that might trap bacteria or especially amoebas. Even if you've lived here for many years and you've developed an immunity to all the bacteria, which I'm sure I have, whatever you can be immune to, I am at this point, most people do not have an immunity to amoebas. And if you come down here as a visitor and get amoebas and then you go up north and you get sick, they may not have any idea what it is, because really doctors in the U.S. just don't know much about parasites and amoebas, because they really don't exist.
Right, you don't see
If they exist in the U.S., maybe it's in one southern state there's been one outbreak, but they really don't know how to deal with them. The sample's got to be sent to Florida or something like that, not to, I can send my sample, it's a block from my house. So that's something that's really important that people take care of. Amoebas, nowadays people are really clean in the restaurants here. Almost every restaurant purifies their vegetables and all that. And that's dated back to about 10, 12, 15 years ago. There was a cholera scare. We didn't actually have cholera here in Mexico, but there was in Central America. And the government did a lot of publicity. And even in the smallest villages we went to, wash your hands after this and purify your vegetables, et cetera, et cetera. So it's definitely a very good idea. We do it all the time.
Okay, and so if somebody was going to come down here and they're going to walk through the Emilio Zapata market up there and buy some fruits and vegetables, then you would suggest before you start eating them, clean them. Yeah,
unless you can peel them. If it's an orange, you don't have to purify the orange. You just peel it. Anything that you can peel, especially a fruit, you don't have to purify.
Okay.
But if you can't peel it, like I say, broccoli, lettuce, asparagus, cauliflower, chard, whatever, any of that stuff, definitely. And strawberries, particularly strawberries that are grown in Mexico, are grown using a lot of fertilizer that smells like fertilizer. And my wife won't even eat strawberries if they're from Mexico. Fortunately, nowadays you can get them imported from wherever.
From California,
Yes.
Right around my corner.
There you go.
Yeah.
But you really need to use it. And generally speaking, with the microdine they have now, it's about a capful per liter, something that will work. They recommend a half a capful per liter. I like to use a capful.
Mm-hmm. And it's safe.
Yeah, it's safe. We've been using it for 40 years, and there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. So, it is safe. It would be better if you didn't have to use it, because, it's kind of like iodine, but, you soak your stuff in it, and how much of the microdine actually winds up your food is so minimal, I don't think it makes a difference. I have met people who take the water out of the tap and put microdine in it and drink it. I would not do that. Huh. You're consuming too much microdine.
Yeah. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there something that you want other than the book?
Other than 1967, which is such a fantastic novel.
Great novel.
I'll tell you, I wrote it and I couldn't put it down. And I only wrote it and edited it like 17 times, and I can't put it down. The reason I can't put it down is I was playing around. I was fixing something in the store with Cola Loca. That's super glue, and the book is glued to my hand, so I cannot put it down. But you won't want to put it down even without the super glue. So come on into Lucy's Cucu Cabaña. We're on Basilio Badillo, 295, and you will not regret it. In fact, if you don't like the book, I'll refund your money. And I've never made that offer before, because I know you'll like it.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely. You're on Facebook. You're online.
Lucy's Cucu Cabaña is on Facebook. I personally, I had a website. It was stolen by the Chinese. And we've been negotiating for the last couple of years to try to get it back. And I think my web person is finally getting it back. First, they wanted a whole lot of money. Then when they saw we weren't going to come up with anything, I think he gave them 99 cents, and that did it. So I may have a web page again. But I am on Amazon, so you can check me out. And by the way, everyone misspells my last name. It's Gevins. Gevins. It's not Givens like everybody else in the world. The reason it's Gevins is my father made up the name. Oh. We had a very, very long name from Eastern Europe that sounded like somebody had sneezed 5 times. And he changed it, Americanized it like a lot of people did.
Oh, yeah.
And we are the only ones in the world because my father made up that name. So it is not Actually, I've got a couple of reviews where they misspelled my name, and that's disheartening when they review your book and give you a nice, good review, but they say, make sure you go to Amazon and look for Gil Gevins, not Gevins. Anyway,
That hurts, yeah.
Gevins. So you won't mess up, and there aren't too many other Gevins on the internet, so you shouldn't have a problem finding me.
Absolutely. All right, well, I'm going to have pictures, and I'm going to have links to all of the things that we talked about today, including where to find Gil and Lucy's Cucu Cabaña. Gil, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and letting me introduce you and Lucy's Cucu Cabaña to my audience.
Well, thank you very much, and I really hope that your readers find, listeners, I'm so into readers, I hope your listeners find it interesting, and I would like to thank everybody who has told me how much they enjoy my writing, because if you're a writer and you don't get any feedback at all, it's kind of sad, and unfortunately it happens all the time with people. But I'm very fortunate in that I'm here in the shop and I'm visible, and people are continually telling me, thanking me for giving them pleasure. And, I honestly and truly, it makes me feel really, really good, because it makes me feel like I have a good, positive reason to be alive, because
Yeah.
I'm entertaining people. I'm making their life, their load a little easier, and God knows right now we all need to make our load a little easier.
Yes, we do. Gil Gevins, this was very easy for me too. I want to thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
All right, Gil, what a great story. And what a great guy. This shop is just filled with the most beautiful, colorful, handcrafted art, Mexican folk art, it'll blow you away. And I've got pictures of some of that stuff too, so you got to go to my show notes and check them out. And make sure that next time you're in Puerto Vallarta, you stop by Lucy's and buy a souvenir. And by all means, get Gil's book, 1967, and tell him how much you like the book. Even if you just read the inside of the cover, just tell him you like the book. No, I'm kidding. Authors really, really, it's a lonely life being an author, and they need a little bit of reassurance. It's kind of the same as, I don't know, being a podcaster. Who knows? Oh, well. Go see him. And thank you. Thanks again for putting up with me, Gil. I appreciate it. Okay, so that should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, well, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you would do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to be using someone else to do it. So just do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And once again, don't forget to go to his website, download his maps, check out his DIY tours, and once again, you're going to go on a tour reserved through him. And if you like this podcast, you guys, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, it's easy for you to do just that. You just go right to my website and look, you can find all these great pictures and you can find all the great links to all the things that we talk about right in the blog posts for each and every episode that I produce. So check them out, really. All right. So thank you, Gil Gevins. Come on now, get out there, buy his book. It's autographed. It's waiting for you at Lucy's Cucu Cabaña. So go pick one up and check out all that contact information for Lucy's in the show notes. This episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show, you'll find it at www Puerto Vallarta TravelShow.com. See the pictures that I took of Lucy's place, that I took of Gil and his shop. And once again, thank you all for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
De Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar, samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino, perno por la playa, encuentro junto al río, cuando todo está en calma, pronto cae la noche, brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar, samba de Puerto Vallarta.